What is going on, guys? I hope you're having an amazing day. And I first want to thank you for tuning into the first episode of many coming from Health by Dr. Vic. And this is something that I actually have done before in 2012. I actually did about 100 episodes, and it was a different podcast, different name called Wellness Smart Radio. And it was all about sharing tips and tricks on things that will be discussed. In this podcast, we're going to be specifically keeping things as short as possible. 15 minutes, 10 to 20 is where I'm going to be looking at of episodes on how to help you elevate in your life when it comes to different attributes of health. To share a little bit about myself, you may have read my bio on my website, but if not, I've been a chiropractor for 12 years. I've been in nutrition for 22 years. I've been a biohacker for the last 13-ish years, and I've always had an interest in health since I was 13 years old. And it's one of those things where I didn't want to just follow what people did. I wanted to know what works for me and how I can figure that out. Then I can help others do the same thing. As a chiropractor, and what I was blessed with is chiropractic is very customized or individualized, which means there's really a specific plan just for you. And that's kind of how my practice was run. And with that being said, that is how nutrition should be. That's how our health should be. Everyone's different. And in the world, and what inspired me to come out and create another health podcast, there's so many of them out there, was because I got tired of seeing the misinformation. There's so much information out there, right? Just go look at if coffee is good for you or not. You're going to see both sides of the story, and both studies show something. Go see if chocolate's good for you. You're going to see both sides to that good and bad also. There's things that we look at, what diet to follow, which one's the better one to follow here, which one's this, is it carnivore, is it keto, is it this, is it high fat, low fat, is it carbs, is it that, and there's so much things out there that, should you follow your macros, I can go on and on with this. And what's the science, and how do we know what works for you specifically? This podcast is going to dive into every element to help level up your life. My training and background is really designed, and what I did is to understand individuals of what really works for them. How do we create an environment to help them be successful? As a chiropractor, it was the same thing. How do I create an environment for them to be successful in the essence of health? And it's when you look at that, it wasn't just chiropractic was the end all be all. And that's how I educated my patients a lot. I'll be talking about chiropractic on here to help elevate and have you understand deeper elements in that too. But I always said this is not the end all be all. There are other things we're going to have to add to the table to help create more of an environment to help you thrive. And that's what this podcast is going to be all about. It's helping you thrive to handle situations and circumstances that show up in your life. We have a ton of great content and resources that we'll be bringing and sharing with you, because I want you to really think about this for a second. At the end of the day, without your health, what do you have? Right? Health is the first of all liberties. It's what gives us the freedom to choose and do. Every day I wake up, and if I can walk and I can do the things that I want to do, I'm blessed, because I'm not inhibited by anything that can be related to my health. I'm not inhibited by other things that can hold me back. I can do what I want to do every single day. And it's a blessing to have that. There comes a time in life where things start to slow down. There's going to come a time in life where we won't be here anymore, right? So my question to you listening is, do you want to be what we see in today's world, in the common health of today, when we call in America, we call healthcare, in many other countries, is you want to be like a candle, right? With the flame, and you kind of are dimming, go out a couple times, come back, dim, 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 go out, come back, dim, 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 go out, come back, dim, 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 go out, and then come back, and then you're gone. Or do you want to be the opposite of that, which is going to be candle flame is strong the whole entire time, right? And then all of a sudden, when the time comes, it flickers a couple, and then boom, gone. Either way, the choice is yours. I choose the latter. This is what I used to share a lot with my patients, is because how can we create more life within the years that you have? We're not trying to extend life. I'll be sharing a ton of things on how, from longevity standpoint, what we can do and how we can create more longevity within our life from a genetic standpoint, and other attributes from an epigenetic standpoint, and other attributes of what we can utilize to do just that. but we'll be sharing stuff, chronic illnesses, diving into those types of things and what we can do. I'll be looking at, autoimmune stuff. I'll be looking at, hormone imbalances, right? Hormone imbalances is skyrocketing like crazy in America today. More and more men are low testosterone. There was a study that came out and they were looking at men in their 60s back in the 1950s had more testosterone than 20-year-old men today. That's a little alarming if you ask me. And so it's not only in men, we see massive hormone imbalances in women. We see infertility going through the roof. It's not only just in women. We used to think before it was just all women that they used to talk about it being the one who was infertile. But now it's also males are just at the same percentage as females. And this is rising. And so this is alarming in many different ways. And there's things that we can do. There's things that we can look at. In my background, my extensive, diverse background when it comes to health is I look at every angle. So I'm not just looking at nutrition or exercise. I'm looking at mindset. You're going to hear me talk a lot about that. I'm big on mindset. I have a whole nother podcast that's just dedicated to mindset. And it's one of those elements of how do we take the mental emotional components, right? And how does that play a role in our health? And we're going to dive into a lot of these different types of topics to have you understand the well-roundedness of how these all things affect you, right? How is that cancer has emotional components to it? Or not just cancer, it's any disease, really. There's emotional components just as much as there's mental, chemical, and physical. And when we understand and grasp this, then we start to look at health in a different way. And when we can get to that point, and that's going to be the main perspective or vision of this podcast, is to help you see health in a different way, to know how to empower yourself, to make choices that are going to help empower you and know how to take the step-by-step action, to understand how your body works, yours specifically. I am very big on individualism. And the reason why is that here, I'll just share one science with you right now. In your gut, in your colon specifically, you have 500 to 1,000 strains of bacteria and viruses and so forth that are nowhere else to be found in the entire human population. Talk about being unique. 500 to 1,000. This is the studies they've done on colons, stool samples and testing out bacteria. And they found there was different bacteria strains that they had no clue what they were. But then they would find out it was only in this individual. And after testing so many of them, it didn't show up in other ones. And then those people had unique ones that didn't show up in other ones. You can see where I'm going with this. And so that's how unique we are. And I'm going to bring studies and science that I can to help you understand a little bit more on a deeper level with things. I'm not saying that just because this study, there's a lot of times I see this in doctors or even who are, very well at what they do. They'll just look at the studies and the studies is the only thing that they base things off, which I'm saying I do that myself. I look at all studies to confirm stuff, especially if I'm going to be giving advice on airways like this. I have to make sure things are very scientifically sound. But at the same token, it is one of those things where the components to these things that I'll be sharing also are going to have physiological stuff that I'll be sharing into that. Like, here's how your physiology works. So even though we may not have a study for this, this is how the body may work in this level, and this is what we may know. Because we want to, understand the depths of what our body is, how individualized it is, and what are the things we can do to empower ourselves to be healthier. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, if you look at disease in the last 30 years, it just continues to get worse and worse and worse. And no matter how much money we put in, no matter new technological advances we have, no matter new medicines that are being used, that model is not working to help slow this down and change course. And this is where I truly believe holistic care. I don't like this term because it doesn't make no sense, but alternative medicine or alternative treatments or alternative therapies, which we'll talk about that in a podcast. But it's, I think this is where people are tired of one way and they're looking for other answers. I know as a pediatric chiropractor, I was a certified pediatric chiropractor, and I remember moms would be fed up and tired of the drugs they had to give their kids or worrying about a diagnosis or just the struggle of having a kid. The ear infections that come on that are very common. I mean, besides a cough, that's the number one reason why coughs are number one reason why kids go to a pediatrician, but ear infections are right behind it. And to deal with that, the colic right now, it's common. And you go to a pediatrician, they'll grow out of it. Just got to deal with it. And it's not empowering to a mom and to even imagine all the stress a child goes through with all that. And they're tired of the model that may not be working. And we have to look and people are just getting fed up. So they're looking at going elsewhere to get answers. And that's where I saw that in my own practice, where I served, 50% roughly of my my volume of patients was pediatrics. And that's one of those things where, but I didn't just see it there. I saw it in adults tired of, they had a back issue. They didn't want to get on drugs. They didn't want to get into all these things. Or sometimes you've been around you've gone through the bandit of exams and tests and all these different things, and they have no answers for you. Right. And I think there's a huge shift coming into healthcare that is the people are starting to be wanting to have answers to something different, right? And I share this in some of my books where I talk about the elements of medical versus, holistic and the mindset and the philosophy behind it. And I'll be sharing those in these podcasts. I'm going to have a lot of them out there. But I'm going to ask for you guys, before we wrap up this episode, if you have topics, I'm opening the board to you guys now. You're listening to this episode, and I want you just to, really think, what are some topics that you want to learn more about? You're going to have my eyes, my view, my knowledge, and things that I've learned and my expertise that I can look at something and I can present it in a way for you. And so if there's things that you're looking for, let me know. You can email me at healthbydrvic@gmail.com. Very simple, healthbydrvic@gmail.com. And you can send me an email and just say, hey, I'm interested in these topics. And then I'll put that in the queue for the podcast. I already have about 15 of them loaded and ready to go. We don't mess around here. We're going to be launching a lot of episodes. But I also want you to understand and know that there are elements to, I'm here to help bring information that you are interested in learning more about rather than trusting Google, which can be a scary route. I never recommend my patients. I'm like, I don't want to stop you from being empowered to learn more. I always told my patients, I never want to stop that. But at the same token, there's just a lot of misinformation, and sometimes you don't know what to look for or what may be really accurate for you to be like, yeah, this aligns with this. Because every time you go and Google something when you have a health issue, it's usually cancer or some very severe, weird, form of something. And instead, I would tell my patients, if you're interested, I will send you the research. I can share articles with you. I can share this with you. That way, they're more aligned with understanding the depths of that. And I'll be doing that in this podcast also. So anything I share, if I ever share a study and you're like, what did he say? Where's the research? Just ask me. I'll be more than happy to share it with you. But I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. One thing I have as a favor is to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And, if you like this episode, please share a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to Apple, podcast or Spotify, Stitcher, iHeart, wherever Amazon, Google Podcasts. There's so many of them out there now. But wherever you listen. And also, last but not least, if you were inspired, pay it forward by sharing this episode with someone that you know. Appreciate you. I'm looking forward to bringing a ton of good content to you guys, and appreciate you taking time to tune into my first episode. And I look forward to sharing wonderful wisdom, knowledge, and inspiring stories to help you truly find, because I always said freedom starts from health, because if we don't have our health, we don't have freedom. And that's where my journey is on this mission with you guys, to share this information, to really empower you of really what is health and understanding how powerful you really are, how much your body wants to heal, and how much it truly wants to thrive. All we have to do is just give it the right environment to do just that, and we'll see that happen. I appreciate you guys. Until then, have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you next time.